So USPI, we're about 350 or so surgery centers. So when you think of business intelligence in our world, we're talking over, I don't know, let's just say each facility has about 4 or 5 main business intelligence end users times 350 times a corporate office. We're well when we're talking about consumers of the products that my team built in the BI department. So we own business objects, but one of the philosophies we took from the start was, even though we've got thousands of end users, I really don't want to have to go buy the business objects enterprise version and have thousands of people logging in every day to get the data they need. Our philosophy was more of, let's build our own portal, which we can control the design, the look and feel, the user access could be basically license free if we build it ourselves, but use business objects as kind of the engine to build what we need. So we'll still have all our universes of all our data sets. We'll then, with those universes, we'll use web intelligence to go build any kind of reporting we need, which we can then use InfoBurst. This is kind of the old way we did it, InfoBurst, to take the data we build in a WebE report and burst them out to the different facilities. So I'm a CEO of a surgery center. Every morning I come in my email, I've got my 3 daily reports in either Excel or PDF. If I'm a material manager, I can see everything that was purchased yesterday or month to date or year to date. So I don't have to come log in here to see my information. It's pushed to me. That was the initial model. Then we had the portal where we said, instead of emailing it, we're going to send it to a network location that's then displayed in our portal. So that's kind of the initial way we rolled out business objects and our portal. But then along came Squirrel, and if you guys are familiar with Excelsius, which I'm thinking a lot of you are, Squirrel's pretty much the same concept of Excelsius. So what we wanted to do was not only distribute to our CEOs and material managers and corporate people in the office, we didn't want to just give them static Excel and PDF reports. We also wanted to give them the ability to interact with the data. So we wanted to give them dashboards that they can have drop downs or radio buttons or drill into graphs, again, without having to go into business objects to do that. And that's where Squirrel was the perfect tool to kind of accommodate that final piece that we were missing in our portal. So what I'll do is, I don't think this will take too long unless you guys can ask questions as we go. We don't have to wait to the end. You can just unmute. Are they able to unmute and ask questions, or is it through the chat? I'm not sure the best way to do it. But if you have questions as we're going, just throw them my way and we can answer them as we go.
Yeah, they will be entered in the questions panels or in the chat section, and we'll definitely help you to monitor those as well.
Okay, so just interrupt if anything's come through.
Okay.
What I figured I would do is just kind of walk you through just web intelligence, which you guys are all familiar with, I'm sure, but a very simple report we built. And the goal for this one, I'm just simple, was this happened earlier this year when the vaccines came out, and all of a sudden, all the corporations out there wanted to track their employees, who was getting vaccinated, who had their first shot, who had their second shot, who had an exemption. There's like 8 key metrics they wanted to track. And this is not an easy thing to track when you're talking corporate office and you're talking 50 centers that all fall into certain regions and markets. So putting together the information was the first part. And then we ended up with this report, pretty simple report where I've got all my raw data. I can see my, these are the actual table names. So they're not the sexiest names per column here, but it made sense to me when I'm building this out. And again, my goal is not to have the end users see this report. I want to provide it to them in just a visual, easy to consume dashboard, not in business objects. So business objects, WebE right now is just acting as my data source. So I'm connecting to the universe where all that information is getting sucked in from all the facilities out there on a nightly basis. And I can see at our facility levels what the numbers are. And then in this report, we're actually rolling it up to our region and to our market. So I've got all the levels summarized in this big block of data. So I've got the report done. Again, I don't want to have people log in here. So the next step is we go into InfoBurst, which I've got over here. Let's see. So what I do is in InfoBurst, if you're not familiar with it, it's a tool that I can then within here create a folder. And now here's the WebE report. I actually just created a new burst where I said new. I went into business objects and I grabbed that exact WebE report we just looked at. drops it in here. It tells me the path where it was found on the right side here. And then I can see the tabs. These are the tabs we were just looking at. And I can then create from this report an XDC, which is this XML data cache. So it's going to take that, going to run it and store all the data on my InfoBurst server in this giant cache format. So it's this one big data set now, which I could then leverage that cache in the Squirrel dashboard to design and look. It's going to navigate using that cache. So I come in here, drop the report in here, come into my XDC, and I can just come in here and run it. You can see this thing's running every day. So it ran this morning at 8 a.m. And once that cache is out there, I then have Squirrel, where I just can connect now to this XDC data cache. And I'm connecting to that COVID vaccines, and I can see the cache that's selected. I just took that raw data tab. That's all I cared about. I just wanted that one tab of data we looked at. Now that I've got the data connected, I could now start playing around. How do I want this to look? And I wanted to make this look very simple, where you can detail into the corporate view. So it's going to be just USPI all, and I can see the count of active employees that have had their first dose, count that have had their second dose. And you can see, COVID tests, religious exemptions. Really, these 8 metrics is all we cared about that we want our corporate office, facilities, RVPs, market presidents to all be able to see. So if I were to preview this, very simple. Again, just wanted to show you a simple dashboard that we did. So I can get all these numbers here. And then if I'm looking at a market, maybe I'm drilling into Eric's market, it's now going to read against that cache. I already had it all summarized in there. So what it's doing is it's running a query against that cache, and it looks at these 3 fields here. So it's looking for the row of data in that cache. That is Eric Boone, all. And then it's going to bring back the results, those 8 numbers, and bring it back into the body of this dashboard. And then I can display it up here. So as I'm drilling down, the numbers will just change on the fly. I can get down to a facility, or I can go back up. So now this simple little dashboard built in Squirrel, connected to a cache that's built from a Webby report. We then have our portal, which I could then take this, you can publish. I'm publishing this locally. I publish it into the app folder of our InfoBurst server, and it gives me a URL. So I get this little URL string of this HTML file is now saved in this location, which I then go into my portal here. So this is our portal. This is kind of our test version of our portal, where I can then take it and save it in here and save it in the folder that I want, the tab that I want, and the folder I want. So I've got this operational at this corporate level here. So I'm looking at the corporate level of our portal, and then an operations tab, and this runs daily. So it's in this little daily folder called the COVID vaccine dashboard. I can give myself some more room, and there it is. So now any user in the company, whether I'm at a facility level, region level, market level, or corporate level, can come in and get to this dashboard and interact with it the same way we just did in Squirrel. So I've got one report in Webby report that runs one time a day, and it can be leveraged by thousands of users in the corporate world that we have in our company without having to eat any of our BusinessObjects license into our homegrown portal. So that's kind of the flow of how we do everything in our company right now. It starts with a universe, gets built out in a Webby report. We take the Webby report, all that raw data, we store it in an XDC cache on the InfoBurst server. We jump into Squirrel, we access that cache and build out whatever we like to build out. In Squirrel, we can do anything we want in this. And when we get really complex in some of our dashboards, I could show you some more samples. And then we save them out into this portal, where now the masses can access the data and interact with the data that we built that began in BusinessObjects. So that's kind of our COVID vaccine dashboard. One of the more recent ones we did, and this, I started with kind of healthcare because that's what our company is, but we do a lot of dashboards that would apply to pretty much any company out there. So another example of what we're recently rolled out is, let's go into here. This is information around our income statement. So every company probably has an income statement, an actual, and a budget. that looks at your EBITDA, your pre-tax income, your operating expense, non-operating expense. Every company is going to have something like that. So what we wanted to do was be able to provide at the facility level, the region level, the market level, and the corporate level, a visual into that income statement. But we didn't want to just give them the raw numbers because they can see their raw numbers. We wanted to show them a visual of their variance to budget for prior month, their variance to budget year to date, and their variance to budget year over year based on the month. So like this would be November, we'd look at this November versus last year's November, and be able to kind of slice through really quick and just see your variances maybe by whole number or by percentage to budget, or I think those are the two. We're looking at your variance to budget and the percentage of the budget, and then per case, because we do cases, surgical cases. We wanted to see not just your salaries paid, but your salaries per case. So we look at that as a metric. So again, I've got a report that points to our little income statement universe. I can pull in all the raw information, and you can see it's going to be at our facility level. We break it out by month, show month in different ways for graphical purposes, and then all the metrics going across that we're going to look at. So it's a lot of metrics, but my thought here is let's just grab everything we need in the Webby report. And I'm going to have multiple tabs on this dashboard. So I kind of break out the Webby into each tab that we're going to show. So the raw data is going to feed our first main tab. The specialty information is going to display on our little toggle to specialty. And then the payer is going to be a third part of the dashboard. So each one's kind of got its own little unique data set. We haven't built out the specialty one, just the payer one. I've got my raw data here. We go into InfoBurst. I go into my monthly, we call this financial variance. So there's my, we just looked at, brought it into here, and then create a cache on it. You can see I'm only using these two tabs of that report, the payer and the raw data, because we haven't built out the specialty part. You come into the XDC. This thing runs once a month, once the month end closes. So we just ran this on the 10th. And we open up Squirrel. And this is where we can design of the results of the cache. You know, it's just sitting there now. I can say whatever I want. I'm going to design whatever I want visually off that data. So I'm looking at a preview here. I'm looking at corporate level information here. I can see my previous month to budget, or I can look at my year to date to budget, or my November versus last year November. You saw all those metrics that we had. So for each metric, we had 3. So if I'm looking at our case volume, I can see by our market president, because I'm looking at all market presidents. I'm going to get all market presidents listed on the left. And I can see for each metric, which is a little box here, what was my variance to budget when it came to volume, revenue, EBITDA, pre-tax. Or I can look at it at a per case, or I could look at it as a percent to budget, because some numbers might look large as a whole number, but it might be a much larger facility. So when you look at it by percentage, it tells a better story. With the ability to drill into our markets, and then I'd see the regions that fall under that market. I can look at a specific region and then see the facilities in that region. And each number I click on, you can hover over any metric you like and then see the trending up top. That's why in my raw data, I broke it up by month, because I'm showing the whole numbers here. So if I looked at year to date, I'm looking at just the total for the year to date. Anything I look at, I can hover over and then see in that top left corner what the trend was. So you can see actual to budget was a problem in February, but then seemed to be doing great the last 2 months to make up for it. And we look at it, income statements have the revenue side. There's an expense side to it as well. And then we've got a labor side as well. So just a quick way that if you're in our corporate office and you want to do some analysis, you can pretty quickly find out per metric who's doing great, who's not doing great, who is the culprit of why you're not doing great, just by looking at here, seeing a metric, and drilling down further. And that other tab we were talking about. So here's kind of the second part of that dashboard. If I click on here, this now is all the data that was on the second tab, where we now look at our payer mix, which is basically the cases that came in. Who was the insurance provider? Was it a workers' comp type of case? Was it Medicare or Medicaid, or was it a commercial like a Blue Cross or a private insurance? So we break down the volume by the payer. So now this is a whole different dashboard. Within the same dashboard, we're now looking at a whole bunch of different data sets here. So if I'm looking at year to date, I can now do some analysis on, let me break down what happened to our commercial. If I click on commercial, breaks down my payer mix by month. I can then click on any month, see the breakdown by facility. So there's a lot that's going on in here, which I'm not going to get into. But the point is all of this information in here that we're looking at, whether I'm on this tab or the year to date or the month to date or the year over year, it's all coming from that one Webby report that I built that runs once a month, that has all the data I need, that's sitting in a cache that I can then design this in. And again, come back into my, let's see, so this would be something we would put, I'm in my test portal here. We call our portal Pulse. So I'm in my Pulse test portal. What I did is I took that URL, saved it into our InfoVerse test universe or apps folder, same way I did the other one. And I can put it in my monthly folder in the financial tab, and it pops up in here. Just like I showed you in Squirrel, it's now part of the portal that anybody in the company can access, whoever has access to this corporate level here. And they can start playing around with it just like I did. Within Squirrel, they can now see it in our portal. We've also got dashboards that we build in Squirrel, which is pretty neat. I don't know if they're in the test environment, but we can test it out and see, which is also something we did in Squirrel on InfoVerse. If I was going to impersonate as if I'm a facility CEO, so I'm logging in as if I'm the CEO of this Denver Harvard. When I log into my portal, we put security on it where I can only see my facility and I cannot drill up the portal. So everything I'm going to see now in this portal relates to my facility. So one of the things we've done, for instance, if I were going to look at this, we have this other Squirrel dashboard here, which is another way of income statements. We built this little waterfall type income statement. Hopefully it's in this dev environment. It might not be. But yeah, it is. So what it does here is even within Squirrel, what we do is we've built a cache, a Webby report that we cache that houses our security information. So what it does, if we look here in the dashboard itself here, the name that I logged in as, there's a way you can grab, I think it's called like the HTML variable component in Squirrel. And if you drag that onto your dashboard and then put it into a portal, it knows who the person is that's in the portal. So it grabs that person's name, drops it into the report, into the Squirrel, into a cell in Squirrel. So it's dropping into like cell A1. And as soon as it drops that name in there, it fires off a query against our security table to say, ST Henry is associated with facility Denver Harvard. And it drops that value now into the Squirrel cell A2. And then as we're running queries now against that cache data set that we built that came from the Webby report, it's directly now filtering all the data in this dashboard for just Denver Harvard Park. So now I can only see data for this facility. So as an administrator or as a facility employee, when I'm looking at anything here, I'm looking at the same dashboard that corporate people are looking at, but it's automatically filtered before it even opens. It's filtering the data. So I don't even see anything or do anything. I'm ST Henry, I'm logged in. Here is my facilities dashboard that I can come into now. Start at the highest level here of my income statement, get into my account, sub-account, maybe drill into something down here and then see all my journal entries associated with it. So really quick interactive stuff employees can do with security on these Squirrel dashboards. So that's how our portal has now evolved. It's turned into this portal where we've got all these dashboards that have security or no security at all the different levels of our company that begin with Webby, end with Squirrel, and are displayed in this portal of ours. And we can have our thousands of users in here with our minimal license usage of BusinessObjects. We only put I think there's about 20 people or so, 20 to 30 people that actually do go into BusinessObjects to do some analysis. But those are more of the corporate department analysts that they do want to come in and drag and drop and build their own Webby reports. Majority of our end users are these other thousands that are out in the field that have no interest in coming here and doing this. They just want to be able to go into that portal, click on the report or dashboard they need, interact with it. And if you noticed on those dashboards, we always have an expert because people still like Excel. So whenever we're building these things out, we will always, up in this corner here, download spreadsheet, and it will just pop all the data that you're looking at on the screen, depending on where you are on the drill down. Danita, I will download to my desktop, and it will just give me all the metrics, kind of like how the web view looks, so they can at least get the Excel spreadsheets if they want them. But yeah, that is what I wanted to show you guys. If you want to open it up to questions, or Paul, if you have any questions, we can do that now.
Yeah, I think, I went to visit David a few months back in Dallas, and he showed me some of these dashboards, and that's when I immediately said to him, "Oh my gosh, you have got to, show this in terms of the way that you're using business objects and web intelligence, at the back end, right, to feed into these, really visual dashboards and applications at the front end in Squirrel." So, and correct me if I'm wrong, David, but you've got about 12 or 13 of these right now running, yes?
Yeah, at least.
And it's kind of interesting because, you showed the COVID one, you showed the financials variance one, but you've got them across the clinical side as well as, right, the operational side.
Yeah, I mean, we've got, let me think where this would be.
And
experience here we're talking, yeah, this
right.
Experience. So yeah, there's clinical data that's flowing through. We've got patient data that's flowing through. Let's see.
Right. And so it occurred to me, oh my gosh, this is actually running, right? Your entire healthcare system.
Yeah.
Because through this portal, you're able to get everything, the financial, the operational, the clinical information. And of course, what you're doing, which, don't get me wrong, I mean, a lot of people have done historically for a long time, is you're using business objects to some degree like an extraction tool. You're using it almost like an ETL tool to get that data set through the universe exactly what you want. But when it comes to the, the presentation layer, you're using a very versatile, right, UI application in the form of Squirrel that really brings the data to life. And makes it so much more consumable, so much more easier for the average user, right, to be able to quickly see what they want and get on with their job instead of looking at complicated reports and Excel spreadsheets and things like that. So I think it's fantastic. A question just came in saying, does Squirrel have some kind of mobile app where you can view the dashboards on the Android or the iPhone? Yes, you can do that today. It's a responsive design application rather than a responsive development application. And so therefore, you can design it to be responsive in the sense that you can design it for the phone or you can design it for the tablet. And it's got templates, right, for you to be able to utilize those options. And therefore, people have developed these kinds of applications you're seeing here specifically for the phone or specifically for the tablet. Now, right now, it would be viewed right through the browser. Yep, there's yeah. You should show us this one, David.
I'll show you this because, well, this one's one I was working on. We ended up putting this on hold, but the whole point of this was almost a mini CRM that would fit exactly on your iPhone. And I have no clue what I put as my password, so that's annoying. So let's look at it this way. But it was going to be to fit exactly an iPhone. So, I just grabbed there is an option to, I think, do mobile device. So it kind of sets the screen size. I also just looked up what is the actual screen size I should do and just plugged it in on the right here. And then kind of built this little frame around just so I could see what it would look like. But this was going to be something that our regional operations team was going to go out and just kind of input this kind of information throughout their day on their phone that we can then track time if we wanted to know which been reached out to, which ones haven't, which facilities are getting visited more often than others. So it was just kind of a quick little CRM app on a phone. So you could build this stuff to be mobile. What we've done right now, we haven't built anything that's mobile just because our dashboards are within our firewall. So you'd have to be, you'd have to be VPN'd in or be on our network for it to work. We do have the cloud version of this, which we looked at over here. You can publish either local or to the cloud. And once you publish something to the cloud, you get a little link that you can send to people that people can view your dashboards outside of the network. So that is something that I did mess around with, which I showed you, Paul, when you were here, my daughter's little camps that they were doing this summer. So I actually built a little iPhone app in Squirrel, saved the dashboard to the cloud, took that URL and just emailed it to my daughter. And then she passed it on to all her friends, and they would just open up this link. It would pop open on their phone, fit perfectly. They can plug in the dates they were available to come to the camp, how much it would cost them, submit the data, and real time we'd get results back of who signed up for the camp on what days, so they can kind of plan their week out. So you can build these for an app on a phone pretty easily.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And also you're talking about another feature because, with Squirrel, you're using, as you said, Infobus Dash and Infobus at the back end, that you have the ability to do write back. And so on that little CRM sample app that you showed, you're asking questions and you've got to be wondering, well, where's that information going to? Well, it's writing back to a database.
Yeah.
And so
you come back and submit, and that's submitted immediately. Submit all that information, get written back to a table we built in our data warehouse. Right.
So you're really building an application here, and with the write back capability, you've got a true two-way communication. And then also to your point, Michael, if you wanted to be an app, and it doesn't have to be an app because, if you don't need an app, one thing less to download on the phone. But if you did want it to be an app, you could quickly create, an iframe that you could have people download and connect that way as well. And we've had a couple of clients who have done that too. So that's pretty awesome, David. I really am impressed with this. And so, like I said, I think we'll have to invite you back, right, to show some of the other dashboards as well, because you've got so many here. And the couple you showed, are just fantastic. That financial variance one just blows my mind, because it's so rich. In terms of its functionality and so powerful in terms of, letting people see quickly and instantly what's happening. And the fact that you can then, lock it down, to different, regional VPs and individuals and so forth is fantastic because they only see what they need to see and they don't, see anything else. This is awesome. So truly awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Good. I don't see any other questions at this time, and we're pretty much right on time, which is excellent. So I can't thank you enough, David, for doing this. And like I said, we'll definitely be inviting you back again. So
right,
thanks so much, and I'll hand back over to Lucy.
Thank you.
Over to you, Lucy.